The Dallas Mavericks' last 12 months have been disastrous. It's barely a year ago since the Mavericks embarrassed the Phoenix Suns and booked their way to their first Western Conference Finals since they won the title in 2011. However, since their rise to contender status, it's been a tumultuous tumble. Immediately following the postseason success, number 2 option Jaylen Brown signed with the New York Knicks, with the Mavericks hoping Spencer Dinwiddie could fill the void. This failed. The Mavericks also hoped to remain a top 10 defense, but they fell from 7th in defensive rating to 25th. Panic fully set in by February 6th as the Mavericks held a 29-26 record, tied with the Suns for the 5th seed in the West, with the Timberwolves, Warriors, and Pelicans all only one win behind. It wasn't a bad season for most teams, but after a deep postseason run, specifically a Western Conference Finals run, it was clear the 2023 Mavericks had taken a step back. Insert Kyrie Irving. The Mavericks traded away key wing Dorian Finney-Smith alongside supposed Jalen Brunson replacement Spencer Dinwiddie for Kyrie Irving. The addition of Kyrie Irving was supposed to right the ship and was supposed to set the Mavericks straight and secure their title as a contender once again. As we now know, that did not exactly go to plan. The departure of Dorian Finney-Smith ruined their wing defense, and they collapsed out of the postseason entirely. Last season's collapse resulted in significant changes this offseason. Kyrie returns, but with the complete revamping of the center position and their wings, there's hope that with this new surrounding pieces, Kyrie and Luka can return to the promised land. So how do the new pieces fit, and can they actually be contenders again? Let's talk about it. The Mavericks may have collapsed after the addition of Kyrie Irving, finishing with a record of 8-12 in games he played in, but Kyrie continues to be a near 50-40-90 scorer anytime he touches the floor. A big question with Kyrie and Luka when the trade was made was how well could they fit together. When pondering this fit, it's worth reminding ourselves of the fact that Kyrie has been primarily a shooting guard, not a point guard, over the last 2 seasons. And although it wasn't limited time, he did have some success playing alongside another primary playmaker in James Harden in his time in Brooklyn. Although Luka and Kyrie's time together was limited to end the season, we have already seen some positive signs with this duo, and have seen the playmaking and gravity of Luka and how it will allow for much easier offense for Kyrie. As previously mentioned, while in the process of acquiring Kyrie, the Mavericks sacrificed their starting power forward in Dorian Finney-Smith, resulting in the depletion of their wing depth and wing defense. Hence, wings became the next priority of the Mavs offseason after retaining Kyrie Irving. The first step was moving off of 3-point shooting wing Davis Bertans. Bertans has not lived up to the expectations throughout the majority of his contract, providing inconsistent 3-point shooting, but most importantly, not providing anywhere near positive wing defense. The direction and objective was clear in Dallas: acquire wings to improve the defense and get rid of those that had hurt the defense. And so with that, Bertans was no longer a Maverick. In the process, the Mavericks traded back from pick 10 to pick 12 and created a trade exception. The Mavericks' efforts to improve their wings continued on draft night as they moved up to acquire pick 24 from the Kings. With this pick, they selected 6'8" wing Olivier Maxence Prosper, also known as Omax. The 21-year-old wing, who stands with a 7'1" wingspan, is coming off of 2 years at Marquette and is the first and youngest piece in this revamped Mavericks wing defense. Omax's frame and length make him a tantalizing prospect on the defensive end, and coming into the league with 3 years in college, the Mavericks will hoping he can adjust quickly and make an immediate impact. Offense will likely be the biggest concern for Omax. However, in his last year of college, he shot 34% on 3.2 attempts a night, which is a marked improvement from his first 2 college seasons in terms of volume and efficiency. The hope is, from the Mavericks standpoint, for a team trying to compete right away, that Omax can have an immediate impact and be a rotational wing this season. For a while, it looked like the Mavericks might have stopped with Omax for their wing revamp. Initially, the Mavericks tried to lure Matisse Thybulle from the Trailblazers, but on July 6th, Portland matched the 3-year, $33 million offer, and with Thybulle being a restricted free agent, the Mavericks were out of luck. But on July 12th, Dallas made their big splash of the summer on the wing with another restricted free agent. Through a 3-team sign-and-trade, the Mavericks sent Reggie Bullock packing, and upgraded to former Celtic Grant Williams. Unfortunately, the Mavericks did not get or add any depth here thanks to the departure of Reggie Bullock. And Bullock is not a small loss. He played 78 games last year for Dallas, shot 38% from 3, and was a solid defender for them. He was the other key wing outside of Dorian Finney-Smith. But the Mavericks did get an upgrade alongside some more youth and way more future production in the addition of Grant Williams as he signed on for the next 4 years. Instantly, the Mavericks now have Grant Williams at 24 and Omax at 21, who are both under contract for the next 4 years. Grant Williams, despite his youth, already has 61 playoff games under his belt and has had some very good playoff moments. He's a 43% three-point shooter in the postseason, and that experience and postseason success bodes well for a team with postseason aspirations. Although it appeared Omax and Grant Williams was the completion of the Mavericks' retool on the wing, on August 18th, the Mavericks signed former Chicago Bull Derrick Jones Jr. Derrick Jones Jr. is a freak athlete on the wing who competes on the defensive end, is one of the better shot-blocking wings in the league, and can even play some minutes as a small ball 5. He is unlikely to be a crucial part of the Mavericks rotations, especially in the postseason, but will be a contributing and valuable member of the Mavericks wing depth this season. With Kyrie Irving re-signed and 3 new wings on the roster, the next priority was the center position. The 2023 Mavericks center position consisted of offensive talent Christian Wood, longtime Maverick Dwight Powell, and newly signed JaVale McGee. The plan from Jason Kidd off rip was for Christian Wood to be the 6th man, with McGee being the starting center after coming off of one of the better backup center seasons in recent memory, the season prior with the Suns. Unfortunately, that plan collapsed. Wood started off very well on the offensive end, as many expected with his combination with Luka, but he continued to be a defensive liability, and McGee fell from his form with the Suns, and that meant Dwight Powell saw himself thrust back into a crucial role, starting 64 games last year for the Mavericks. Although Dwight Powell is returning once again, now for his 10th year in Dallas, the Mavs will once again be hoping to avoid relying heavily on him, and at least hoping he doesn't have to start 64 games again. When the Mavericks moved off of Davis Bertans and began their wing revamping, they also began to retool their frontcourt. Whilst moving back from pick 10 to pick 12, the Mavericks selected 7'1" center out of Duke, Dereck Lively. Now, at only 19 years of age, Lively is a young talent who will be expected to produce immediately on this roster thanks to their expectations, which could lead to some struggles, but given time, there is a lot of upside in Lively's game. At 7'1" with a 7'7" wingspan, Lively averaged 2.4 blocks a game at Duke and projects to be a great rim protector in the NBA. He does need to add a bit more strength, but with time and development, the Mavericks could have a great anchor to their defense. Offensively, there's still a lot of room for improvement for Lively, but there is some tantalizing upside. Through his freshman season, he dabbled with a 3-point shot, something that could translate with time, and at 7'1" will be a constant lob threat in the pick and roll. His growing pains as a 19-year-old rookie could prove to be an issue for a Mavericks team looking to compete at the highest level, but his upside alongside Omax make for some intriguing rookie talent on the roster. Although Lively was a great start to the retooling in the frontcourt, some more experience was needed, and in the process of getting the Kings' first-round pick to select Omax, the Kings used their previously acquired trade exception when they traded Davis Bertans and absorbed the contract of Richaun Holmes. Now, Richaun Holmes is not the highly touted name he once was in the league, more specifically when he was a highly regarded free agent in 2021, when other teams and fan bases like that of the Raptors had significant interest before he signed a 4-year, $46 million deal with the Kings. Holmes has now fallen out of favor in Sacramento over the last couple of years, in large part due to the fact that Domantas Sabonis arrived in town, but he still could bring some value to the Mavericks. Holmes comes to Dallas with over 400 games in the league, and can still be a solid rebounder with some rim protection and some solid finishing around the rim. He is purely a backup center. If they have to rely on him starting games significantly, they're in a problem again. But with McGee and Wood out the door, absorbing the contract of Holmes to support Dereck Lively could prove to be very valuable. There will be a lack of offensive punch at the center position, and there may be some growing pains, but it's a new look center rotation that is sure to have upside, should have much more energy, and could have a little bit more consistency. Dwight Powell returns once again, despite many fans hoping he would not be a Dallas Maverick, but the hope is he doesn't have to start 64 games this year with Holmes and Lively alongside him, and Maxi Kleber returns starting this season healthy, which is crucial for this team. After returning from injury last year, Kleber struggled to find his defensive and three-point shooting excellence from the 2022 postseason, but the hope will be with the full offseason of health, Kleber can return to health and great production. This front court is far from perfect, but it's fresh. It's much more defensively oriented and has some upside with the addition of Dereck Lively, which is something you simply could not say about last year's front court. Improving their front court and their wings was the priority, but the Mavericks weren't done in the backcourt after the re-signing of Kyrie Irving. Seth Curry returns to Dallas, and despite the fact he is now 33, he will be a very valuable part of this Mavericks roster. Curry immediately gives valuable spacing and three-point shooting around Luka and Kyrie, and will provide some secondary shot creation and much-needed quality on this roster outside of Doncic and Kyrie. Dante Exum was also brought in to provide some depth guard play after the departure of Frank Ntilikina. Exum has had some successful time overseas and while playing internationally, and he and the Mavericks will hope that this time back in the league he can stay healthy and improve his offensive production. Despite the fact that there are many new faces, there's still a couple of returning pieces that I expect big leaps from in this upcoming season. Josh Green is the most notable one for me. He is one of my favorite picks for most improved player this upcoming season, with a big caveat. The 22-year-old became a consistent rotational piece last year for the Mavs and really broke out at times when Jason Kidd gave him the chance. Now, frustratingly, Kidd didn't give him the necessary opportunity or minutes required for the Mavericks or his own success last season, despite the fact there were moments where Green was arguably the second best player on the roster. Hence, Jason Kidd is the caveat for his MIP pick. Green had a very efficient offensive season, improved his three-point shooting significantly, and was consistently a very good defender. That level of two-way impact is something I expect the Mavericks are going to need and are going to rely on. Heading into year 4, a contract year for Green, expect another big season, and whether it be in the starting lineup or off the bench, Josh Green will be one of the most impactful players for the Mavericks this season, assuming Jason Kidd gives him the opportunity. Jaden Hardy is another player who suffered from a lack of opportunity from Jason Kidd last season, but for a rookie, he showed great offensive upside. Shooting over 40% from 3 during a rookie season is always impressive, and I expect more continued production in year 2. Let's just hope he continues to get the opportunity. One returning player I do not expect significant production from this season is Tim Hardaway Jr. Hardaway Jr. is someone I expected to be moved this summer, similarly to Davis Bertans. Hardaway has struggled to live up to his production and efficiency of the 2021 season, which was his payday season. Since he signed his new contract, he has had a major injury, and his efficiency has plummeted to old ways. With 2 years left on his deal, making $18 million next season, his declining efficiency and the rising impact of Josh Green and Jaden Hardy, on top of the addition of Seth Curry, don't be surprised if Tim Hardaway Jr. is traded, or if he simply falls out of their rotation. As a collective, I believe these roster changes have significantly improved their cohesion and their roster construction, specifically on the offensive end. Talent is not always supreme in the NBA, and although this roster does have talent, the roster construction around their top-end talent has significantly improved when compared to last year's team. Offensively, there are no concerns. Luka is one of the best offensive talents in the league, and Kyrie continues to be one of the most efficient scoring guards in the NBA. That duo, alongside Josh Green, Seth Curry, Jaden Hardy, and others, they're fine. They're going to be a very good offense in Dallas. Similar to last year, the big question mark again will be on defense. Last year, their defense was terrible. We talked about it earlier. They were a bottom 10 defense in the league. A year ago, when they made the Western Conference Finals, their defense was above average for the majority of the season, and even quite a bit above average at times. The Mavericks have made significant moves and additions this summer to get their defense back to Western Conference Finals levels. Replacing Dorian Finney-Smith was crucial, and they did that this summer with Grant Williams and Omax. Specifically with Grant Williams, his playoff experience will be very beneficial for a Mavericks team with serious postseason aspirations. The concerns lie in having to potentially rely on two rookies, that being Omax and Dereck Lively, and in the case of Dereck Lively, if he doesn't play well, it once again raises the possibility of Dwight Powell having to be the starting center, something that I don't want, and I suspect most Mavericks fans don't want. There's upside now, specifically with Omax and Dereck Lively, as well as Jaden Hardy and Josh Green, but the defense remains a concern, and they are young. They just might need a little bit more time. My concern is that the upside is not yet ready to compete at the highest level. I expect a postseason return, and they may even win in the first round, just thanks to Luka. But this team is relying on plenty of youth and plenty of new pieces. They have upside, and it's upside for the first time in a few years that is not fully dependent on Luka. However, that upside is going to need time to develop and to come to fruition. There's still a bright future in Dallas, and they should be more competitive and a more complete roster this year. But I'd be very surprised if they are back in a Western Conference Finals anytime soon.